Please welcome our esteemed speakers of this industry plenary on stage. Please put your hands together and welcome our moderator, Shri Anurag Chaudhary, Managing Director and Lead Utilities Accenture in India. He has 2 decades of experience in strategy development, digital-led business transformation, sales and marketing, and large-scale program management. He has extensively worked with clients in industries such as power, infrastructure, steel, mining, cement, paper, and gas around energy efficiency and sustainable practices. Please welcome with a round of applause our other speakers in this distinguished panel. Please welcome Shri Vivek Kumar Devangan, IAS, Chairman and Managing Director, REC Limited. Please welcome Mr. Ajay Dua. I think Mr. Devagan is on his way and will join us soon. Please put your hands together and welcome Shri Ajay Dua, Executive Director, NTPC. Please welcome Shri S.R. Narasimhan, Chairman and Managing Director, Grid Controller of India. Please give a round of applause and welcome our speakers on stage. Please welcome Tejas D. Parmar, IAS, Managing Director, Madhya Gujarat Vij Co. Limited. Please welcome on the stage Shri Anil Sardana, Managing Director, Adani Energy Solutions. Please welcome Mr. Kasunari Fukui, Asia Decarbonization Leader, GE Vernova. Please give a huge round of applause and welcome our speakers on stage. I'll hand it over to Anurag to steer this discussion. And we are anticipating that Shri Vivek Devangan will be here with us another 5 minutes and he'll join us on stage, but Anurag can start nevertheless. Over to you, Anurag.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's panel on a topic that is central to India's growth trajectory going forward, steering India's energy future. As one of the world's fastest growing economies, we face 2 dilemmas. One is to provide adequate power to meet our requirements. On the other hand, we also need to look at sustainability, energy security, and affordability. The stakes are high, and the decisions we make today will impact our energy landscape for decades to come. Some of the aspects that need to be discussed and debated include how can we meet our power requirements sustainably. Secondly, how can we look at green hydrogen, new battery chemistries, etc., in a manner to be able to be leverage them in India. And also we need to look at policy, regulations, and financial aspects related to all of these. Now, if you look at the kind of questions I raised, this needs a very, very diverse set of people to be available for a comprehensive discussion. To the extent that it may seem like wishful thinking to be able to do a holistic assessment. But as they say, you should be careful around the wishes you ask for, because at times wishes can become reality. And this could be one of those days, because on the panel we have got top level functionaries coming from India's largest power generation company, India's largest transmission company, 2 of the largest distribution companies, one of the top 2 financiers in the power sector, right? And to top it all, we have got the Grid Controller of India and also someone who has been working on decarbonization across the world to bring in the good practices. around the discussions which we have today. I couldn't have been more excited, right? So I would like to quickly dive in, but as we dive into this, I will request our audience to listen intently and to also be ready with some insightful questions and thoughts towards the end of this discussion, right? So the way we will run this is, I will go and sit down there. We will not have any presentations. We are going to be doing a Q&A session, right? So I'll go there and then we'll start the session. Thank you. Am I audible? Usually that's not the question I have to ask. I'm quite loud, so all right. So I think let's start with NTPC as the largest power producer in the country. They have been instrumental in the power capacity additions, and going forward also I don't see that they will not be. So therefore, I think I have two questions to you, sir. The first question is around what are your plans going forward? And more importantly, how are those plans qualitatively different than what you have done in the past?
Thank you.
Then I'll just come to you.
Look, presently the country needs both thermal power and RE power. Thermal power to basically provide energy security and accessibility to all. And RE power, we have already committed targets at international level. Government has projected that we need to have about 80 gigawatt additional thermal power by 2030. And NTPC has a target of 26 gigawatt out of that. 26 gigawatt is in central sector. NTPC would be establishing about 18 gigawatt. We have already awarded a couple of projects. We of about 3,000 gigawatt capacity. We have about 4 gigawatt capacity under construction. And in the coming 6 months, next 6 months, we propose to award about 4 gigawatt more. So that is on the coal front. On RE front, we are presently having 3 gigawatt capacity. And in this financial year, we hope that another 5 gigawatt would be added. And in next financial year, another 8 gigawatt. So those are the capacity addition plans of NT.
All right. Okay. Great. So I think, while we can create capacities, the real rubber meeting the road is when you go to the consumers, right? So, Mr. Sardana, I would like to understand from you that what are your plans to meet the power demands of the customers, especially with respect to the quality of power and sustainable power.
Good afternoon. I think you have to pardon us for the acoustics because it looks like we are hearing our voice more than we perhaps are able to transmit our voices, but nonetheless, we will still go ahead. I think it's a very pertinent point that you raised, but let me pick up the key metaphors out of the statement that you made. In terms of availability is what you said, and then you talked about quality. When it comes to availability, let me again get down to supply side and the demand side. On the supply side, it's obviously important that one studies the load factor and then bases the load factor, use different formats of generation that's available today to meet the consumer demands. And in fact, to that extent, today we find that most of the state discoms have the biggest issue of mismatch between their load factor and the power that they have contracted. With the result, the cost to consumer for the bulk supply itself is phenomenally higher. So what we have done typically in our distribution areas where we have consumers in Mumbai or in Gujarat, we have been able to balance it in such a way that we only source power according to the load factor. And by virtue of that, optimize the cost. So that's on the supply side. But I think what is more gratifying is that by virtue of this, it will be surprising for people to know that today we are reaching almost 40% green electrons within the bulk power that we source, which is the highest that any DISCOM has in India. And when I add to that the contracts that we have placed going forward with the due approval of regulators, we will be 70% green electrons by 2027.
Wow.
Now, that has two advantages. One, it is low cost. And the second advantage is that it's transition by virtue of the advantage that we are passing to the consumers. Despite the fact that perhaps Mumbai is one of the key places which started green tariff, the consumer can make a choice by paying that tariff. But anyway, so that's on the supply side, we've done a lot of innovative stuff to make sure that we not only meet, but we also keep reducing the cost by having no wasteful contract and making sure that the balance we trade off very well. And in fact, over a period since the time we took over the DISCOM in Mumbai, 2018 to now, we've actually reduced 1 rupee tariff by virtue of this part, is what we have presented to regulators. So I'm not saying what I'm saying what the regulator has acknowledged. The second part on the demand side. So when you talk about the demand side, what difference are we making from consumer perspective? One is, of course, talking about transition is one part. But perhaps we have taken a very interesting project, which is for many DISCOMs to replicate. We are creating centers of PQ, power quality, where we are assuring that every factory, every establishment will remove UPS from their factory. And we will ensure power quality where the frequency, the voltage, the harmonics will be guaranteed by us suo motu. Awesome. With the result, we have taken SEEPS area. SEEPS, as many may be aware, is the Santa Cruz Exports Electronics Processing Zone. And therefore, we have taken that as our first port of call for us to demonstrate that live, where the demand side will be given availability in a manner that the availability is bereft of any deviation. And we are saying to them that if tomorrow you have any brownouts or blackouts, we will fund that. So put the money where the mouth is. That's exactly what we are trying to do on the demand side. Now you talked about, this is about availability, how you organize availability. I'm sure our friends from outside will empathize that they already do this in their locations, but some of these aspects we have worked along with people like TEPCO in Japan. That's why I mentioned this part. But coming to the quality side, this was one aspect. On the other aspect, what we are tending to do, we know very clearly that states will shy away from privatizing DISCOM. Like it or not, the political will or the vested interest will continue to play to a manner that reforms will be slow. We have applied for second license in several locations, but it is not going to come so easily despite the fact it's a provision in the act. So what are we doing to do that? What we are saying, how do we simulate being a distributor of choice? So we have created a branch within our business where we call that as distribution platform. And internally we call that as Project Plug. So we're going into every plug within the industries and saying, I will manage your system in such a way that your cost will reduce and I will again burn the cost of the fuel if tomorrow there is any reason that it's happened because of us. And what are we doing? We are ensuring supply side. The wires will continue in many cases to be state. If the customer is above 50 megawatt, we will connect it to the CTU system. And therefore, we will come to CTU to ask for base. But what's gratifying is that today, there is a big change that's happening, and everybody sitting here is aware of the fact that we are getting tremendous AI demand. We are getting tremendous data center demand. Today, we have signed up almost 5 gigawatt, 5,000 megawatt, where this private distribution arrangement is being worked out. And therefore, on the demand side and the quality side, one will have to partake this association with customers to become their distributor of choice, because you will not find discoms changing. So since the discoms will not change candor, we will make sure that we will capture customers and eventually give them those choices. So that's something that we are tending to do, quite different, and that's why you find that we are not selling in the open market our green, despite the fact that we are largest. We already have a clear roadmap to doing 50 gigawatt of renewables in next few years. And a lot of that is ordered. I'm not talking about something that is just on the cards, something that is ordered. We have 30 gigawatt of conventional power, out of which 17,000 we have clocked as of today, with acquisition of 2 new assets. And another 15,000 megawatt has been ordered. I'm talking about, again, ordered. In terms of transmission system, we continue to be the largest private sector because we arrived late. But good part is that we are maintaining our EBITDA levels, which is what is our performing system, at least 200 basis points better than the next best. And similarly, on the trading and the customer side, I've already mentioned, so I don't want to repeat that part. So we cover the entire value chain as a part of energy solutions. We are saying, and the last dream that we are nurturing, and this is for all the professionals who are sitting here, we want to sell electricity like telecom. And I've said this before, and I invite many of you to visit Mundra, where we will demonstrate you live, where actually the customer can go on the website and choose his pack of the day, pack of the week, pack of month, or pack of the year, or whatever, and they can choose these sources. So what we are tending to do is saying that a time will come that every Genco will put their details on the website, and the customer will be able to choose. And since the point of injection and point of drawal will be known, my friend Narasimhan and his team will enable a fixed charge which will get added to that part through the blockchain system. So this is not discussion, this is live. You can come, we'll demonstrate to you in Mundra, and time is not very far where we will actually enable you that your meter will be like your mobile phone. You will be able to choose from your mobile phone your Genco of choice. Somebody wants green, somebody wants nuclear, somebody wants blended. You will get that at your choice. So that's the plethora of choice we want to give to customer. And this is all real. Thank you.
All right, thanks. I think this was an extremely comprehensive answer. And it even answered the next question I had, because I understand Mr. Sardana might have to leave in between. So my next question was going to be that what are the top 2 or 3 opportunities you see going forward? But I guess you have covered it. Still, if there is 1 or 2 more, if you wanted to talk about, happy to hear.
Yeah, just maybe since you're giving me the opportunity, let me add to the point that you made about the green hydrogen. See, while the transition is imminent, one feels that if we really have to make green hydrogen sustainable, we don't have to wait for fertilizer and the ammonia consuming people to start accepting green hydrogen or green ammonia. That's not going to happen. Particularly because they're already reeling with so much of subsidy that they take from the exchequer. So it's very unlikely that the fertilizer companies and those who are in private sector are going to transition. It's not going to happen. So the best, other than the exports that we will talk about sometimes later, I think it's important that what we should do is to displace imported coal with green hydrogen to some extent. And I think the living example is Japan and China, where Japan is doing 20% by law. You have to displace coal with green hydrogen, which is green ammonia, 20% by law. Similarly, in China, why they don't have the law, but they don't have to have a law, they, in any case, mercilessly go about implementing, they are doing 35%. And I think we have started in our modest way in Mundra to convert one unit to have 20% green hydrogen. But what I have been suggesting to the government, and I think time that we should make this into a law. If you do that, you can be gradual. You start with 5% initially to say imported coal should be replaced up to 5%, then gradually move it into high-cost domestic coal, and eventually have it up to 20% once the experiment is successful. I think that's what will make the volumes occur. And we have all seen when the volumes occur, the cost goes down. And I'm more than confident we will be able to produce something which will be affordable and will therefore be able to participate. I think India's time has arrived. Today we are net importers of energy. If you actually start creating volumes, you can be net exporter of energy. That's what we have to vie for. And this is the only solution that I see that will make it sustainable.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks. Thank you. That was nice. Mr. Parma, coming to you. Gujarat has been a leading state in the power sector, both in terms of viability as well as in terms of consumption and all other parameters. As the MD of MGVCL, what are your plans going forward and how do you continue to maintain your leadership position?
Hello. So basically, I head one of the distribution companies in Gujarat.
Yes.
We have 4 distribution companies and one umbrella company, which is Gujarat Urja Vikas Nigam Limited. So I'll talk about all 3 aspects like supply of power, then transmission and distribution. What is our current status and what we are planning to do. I will have to give some numbers to give the context what we are planning to do by 2030. Currently, Gujarat's installed capacity is 53 gigawatt. And out of that, almost 50% is RE. Almost 28 gigawatt is RE, coming through RE. Other is coal and gas-based thermal power plants. Some is nuclear. In terms of GUNL, we have installed or maybe tied up capacity of up to 30 gigawatt. Out of 53 gigawatt of entire Gujarat, GUNL itself has tied up capacity of 30 gigawatt. Out of that, in RE, right now we are 33%, roughly around 10 gigawatt. Still 51% is coal, and which is coming from private player as well as our state player, which is GSEC, which is supplying us around 6,000 megawatt, 6 gigawatt. So our planning is to contribute to our goal of India to have 500 gigawatt RE by 2030. So Gujarat itself is committed to have 100 gigawatt RE by 2030. And the plan is underway. GUNL's tied up capacity, which is right now 10 gigawatt, as I mentioned earlier, we are planning to tie up more 40 gigawatts by 2030. So in fact, in last 1 year, we have tied up and we have signed PPA of up to 13 gigawatt, which is highest in the country in RE. So it will come through both wind and solar. In wind, we are already leading in country, and in solar also we are gearing up. So this is how our resource adequacy plan is also prepared, and we are thinking that this energy transition is must, but it should be just also. Like we will gain, as Mr. Sardana had said, through RE, we will get some cheap power. So it should be just. So right now, since last many years, we have not increased our tariff. And we are planning that by getting cheap power, even if we consider inflation for next 5 or 6 years, we will not have to increase our tariffs. So our tariffs will be very competitive. Even in industrial sector, our tariffs are very, very competitive. There was one estimation by us. current level, our APPC is around 6.4, which I think will go down up to 5 or 5.1 by getting this much RE. The issue will be in transmission, I guess, because this much RE will require a transmission carrying capacity also. So our transmission company, which is Jetco, is also planning it has very ambitious plan of expanding its network. Currently, it is Jetco, which is a state transmission unit. It has around 2,300 substations, mostly in Gujarat. Compared to other Indian states, we have 66 kV networks, whereas in other states, more or less, it is 33 kV network. So we are going to add 1,000 substations in next 7 years. So it is almost 33% or maybe 50% of what is our current capacity. At the same time, because we are public utilities, so we have to serve our agricultural consumers. We have to serve our poorest of the poor consumers who is living in the interior areas of our Gujarat state. So we have to have a thorough plan for them also. Because our substations are located at very remote places and our distribution lines are very long. So we are considering that aspect also. Even if we have to operate at a very low level of substation capacity, we will provide substations to those areas also. So 1,000 substations we are planning to add in next 7 years. And currently our transmission companies, the capital expenditure is roughly around 1,000 to 1,500 crores. Since last 2 years, it has been doubled to 3,000 crores. And now we are planning to do capex of up to 10,000 crores per year, and 1 lakh crore capex plan is there in the transmission. Because we are shifting our AG load also to this daytime power supply. As of now, our Gujarat's highest this power demand was around 25 gigawatt, sorry, in current year. And out of that, 7 gigawatt was roughly for agriculture. So when we will shift our agriculture load to daytime power, then again our peak power demand will go up. And for that, the RE will help us a lot. Now, if we come to storage part, there also we have certain plans. We have identified 23 sites in Gujarat, which has potential of around 14 gigawatt of pump hydro storage projects. Out of those 23 sites, around 6 sites will be given as per nomination, and other sites will be on competitive basis. So we will have to have a battery energy storage system, then pump hydro storage systems along with RE. Now, I will come finally to the distribution where I actually work. So even that also, the RDSS, the Government of India scheme is underway, and around 6,000 crore of rupees of capital expenditure works are going in all 4 distribution companies. Apart from that, if we have to compete to the private players like Torrent and Adani, and in terms of our power services, we have to augment our network. We have to change the network, or maybe change the conductors and transformers which are very aged. For that also we have plan, and we are trying to maybe we have make plan to do expenditure of roughly around 7,000 crore from our ARR. And let me say that even after doing this much expenditure, we will not have to increase our tariffs, because this year we have got very good profit. The numbers will be declared maybe in month or so after our accounts are put up in board. And we are hopeful that by doing all these things, we will be able to provide quality, reliable power to all our consumers.
All right. Excellent. I think one thing when we talk about power sector is people talk about generation capacities, they talk about transmission, they talk about distribution. What gets forgotten at times, especially by laymen, is that there is a lot of plumbing, there is a grid. And if that is not stable, even if you have overcapacity, you may still not be able to supply, right? So that's where the Grid Controller of India comes in. I was just thinking that Sri Narasimhan is here. Sir, what are you doing towards the end of ensuring the grid stability? And what are your plans going forward on that account?
Yeah, thanks, Anurag. So actually, as we have just listened, maintaining reliability of the grid has always been a challenge, and it would be even more challenging as we go forward. So our success lies in the ability to anticipate the conditions that are likely to occur in the future and put in place the right set of framework, the right set of building blocks. And we have been doing that in the last decade. In fact, when we look at the first issue which comes is how do we improve the flexibility of our existing generating resources? Because that would be the key to integrating more and more renewable energy into the system. So if you look back, like in 2015, the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission came out with their coal flexibility target. 55% was announced in 2015. Mind you, this was much before we even had this 175 gigawatt target by 2022. So it was on account of our close follow-up with the Commission that we had this 55% coal flexibility rule come in the grid code itself. And we have been working towards that. The next is, of course, hydro flexibility. We did a study in 2017 where we found that we could at least harness 5 to 6 gigawatt of additional peaking through our existing hydro generating units. And when we discussed it with the states, there was some amount of, water is always a very sensitive subject, and so when a suggestion is being made that possibly we can optimize it further. So we found that there was a little bit of a lukewarm response at that point of time. But today when you look at the hydro generation profile, you find that everybody is optimizing it as per the national requirement. You just pick up the price curve for any day and look at the hydro pattern, it would exactly mimic that. So hydro optimization, that's the best success story that we have had. And then gas flexibility also, we have used both on a diurnal basis as well as on a seasonal basis. So these are the three aspects, the conventional resources, how do we utilize? I'm not saying we have done all that we could. There is still a lot of scope for improvement in this area, but nevertheless, the best test of this was when the Honorable Prime Minister announced on 3rd April 2020 that the lights, people will have to switch off at 9 p.m. for 9 minutes.
Correct.
And that was a real challenge for us. We got just about less than 48 hours for planning. And because of all this framework in place, the flexibility of the existing resources, we could manage that. A 31 gigawatt load drop in just about 20 minutes, that was something our system still handled. So that is the measure of the success. Sure. And then when we look at wind and solar integration, we realized at the interstate level, 2018, we hardly had any wind and solar connected to the interstate transmission system. But we realized that a lot of issues are important there, especially the CA standards for connectivity to the grid, they have to be followed. So we put in place the system for that. The CA standards were amended in Feb 2019, and we put in place an exhaustive procedure of how we would verify compliance to those standards, because that's very important for stability of the grid. And today we have about 33 gigawatt of wind and solar connected to the interstate transmission system, and this is growing. All the future additions are going to be more at the interstate transmission level. And that was the second. And third is, of course, since the last 3 years, cyber security, that has gained center stage, that's also very much relevant for security of the grid, So we had to take all the actions. Grid India is also the CERT grid operation, and we have to interact with all the state load dispatch centers to see that the cyber security posture is improved, and in October 22, we commissioned a security operations center for monitoring live 24/7 monitoring of the all the traffic, and so that's one area. So these are the three areas as far as reliability of the system is concerned. On the market side also, we have done a lot of work, starting with the security constraint economic dispatch, which has now completed 5 years of operation in 2024. We have saved 3,800 crore rupees worth of fuel by this arrangement, and the success of this, it is now being extended at the intra-state level also. Parallel work is going on, pilot exercises are being done. Then on the markets, we also had the real-time market rolled out in 2020, and then the ancillary services market for tertiary frequency control, that we rolled out in June 2023. The grid code, CRC came out with a new grid code from 1st October 2023. That involved a lot of changes to our existing scheduling mechanism. So we have put in place all the required infrastructure. Our scheduling system, we have revamped from 5th August. We have rolled out a new scheduling system. So these are some of the areas where we have taken initiative. And a lot of work needs to be done going forward, which I'll elaborate later. Thank you.
Right, thanks. That was again a very comprehensive answer. Now we keep talking about additions to generation. We keep talking about improvement in distribution infrastructure. I think none of this can happen without massive investments, right? And when we talk about investments in the power sector, REC is one of the top institutions. If not the top, then amongst the top two, right? So therefore, I think with Devangan San here, we would like to understand, sir, that what are the steps you are taking to enable this transition, number one, and number two, going forward, where do you see REC helping people around with the power infrastructure?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Anurag, for asking a very pertinent question. Let me just give you a broad overview. As India is aspiring to become a developed country in next 23 years by the year 2047, the basic parameter or indicator of development is per capita consumption of electricity. Right now, per capita consumption of electricity in India is only 1/3 of the world average. As we aspire to become a developed country in next 23 years, the per capita consumption of electricity is bound to grow. Take for example, per capita consumption of electricity in United States of America is about 10 to 12 times of the world average. In our pursuit to become a Viksit Bharat, per capita consumption of electricity in India is bound to grow. It is going to be 3 to 4 times at least of the world average. That gives an indicator how the development of power sector is going to take place in next 20 to 25 years. The power demand in last 2 years after economic revival post-COVID, you have seen that power demand has been increasing by 8 to 9% per annum. And we have been able to meet this increasing power demand. The Ministry of Power has made a detailed action plan. The technical arm of Ministry of Power, that is Central Electricity Authority, has worked out an optimal generation mix which would be required by the country by the year 2032. REC is going to play a very crucial role in the development path which the Government of India has undertaken. As you are aware that REC had played a very significant part as nodal agency of Ministry of Power for universal access to electricity. When Honorable Prime Minister had announced from the rampart of the Red Fort on 15th August 2015 that we'll achieve 100% village electrification in 1,000 days, we were able to achieve this target 13 days short of the target of 1,000. We covered this 100% village electrification in a record time of 987 days. Thereafter, we carried out massive exercise for household electrification. All the willing households were electrified. We covered about 2.86 crore households in record time. After having achieved universal access to electricity, now the next target is to provide 24/7 reliable, quality and affordable electricity to all the consumers. In that direction, a lot of reform measures have been initiated by Ministry of Power, particularly with regard to distribution sector. Revamped distribution sector scheme has been launched to improve the operational and financial efficiency of distribution companies. Thereafter, a late payment surcharge rules were notified by Ministry of Power. These two schemes have really changed the entire outlook in the power sector. The liquidity has improved. The financial health of distribution companies has started improving. The legacy government department dues, legacy subsidy dues are getting reduced substantially, and by the end of 2026, we'll be able to liquidate all the legacy government department dues, legacy subsidy dues. And in fact, so much so that the AT&C losses have come down substantially from 22% to about 15.4% in last 1 year itself. And we are committed to bring this AT&C losses further down. Other than AT&C losses, the subsidies are being paid by the state governments quarterly in advance to distribution companies. This has really helped improve the financial health of the distribution company, and in turn, it has improved the financial health of the generation companies and transmission companies also. With this background, let me just give the perspective from REC. Our asset under management, that is total loan book, has grown by 17% in last financial year, and our total asset under management has grown to about 5,09,000 crore. And we hope to sustain this growth momentum from 15 to 17% per annum, and we are targeting to double our asset under management to about 10 lakh crore by the year 2030. A substantial portion of our loan portfolio will come from renewable energy segment. Right now, renewable energy portfolio of REC is about 40,000 crore, and we are targeting to increase our renewable energy portfolio to about 3 lakh crore by the year 2030. We are covering the entire gamut of the green projects: solar power, wind power, hybrid solar wind, storage solution, be it battery energy storage or pump storage hydro projects, solar module manufacturing, wind turbine manufacturing, large hydro projects, small hydro projects, electric mobility and associated charging infrastructure, green hydrogen, green ammonia. We are covering the entire gamut of the green projects, as India has targeted to install about 500 gigawatt capacity from non-fossil fuel sources by the year 2030. Right now, we are at the level about 200 gigawatt. It means that another 300 gigawatt capacity is going to be installed in next 6 years by the year 2030. This will entail an investment of about 15 to 20 lakh crore. Not only this installation of non-fossil fuel based electricity capacity, but it will also require the storage solution. It will also require evacuation through green energy corridors. So we are targeting, REC is targeting a market share about 20% of this renewable energy portfolio. That's why we are targeting to increase our renewable energy portfolio to about 3 lakh crore by the year 2030. The coal-based generation is also going to play a very significant role. As you are aware that renewable energy is intermittent in nature. It cannot provide round-the-clock 24/7 power. In order, the coal-based power plants will continue to provide the base load in India. We have to provide energy security to our citizens. We cannot blindly go for energy transition without looking into energy security. That's why Central Electricity Authority has made a projection that country will require another 94 gigawatt capacity to be installed by the year 2032. So we are also targeting to capture a 20% market share with regard to the financing of coal-based power plants, which are essentially coming in the brownfield project. They are not greenfield projects, they are coming in the brownfield projects. And distribution sector and transmission sector will continue to be our main core strength area. REC will continue to finance the entire value chain of power sector from generation to transmission to distribution. And we hope that we'll be able to provide necessary infrastructure support to the growth story of India to become a Viksit Bharat by the year 2047. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, sir. This was very encouraging. Finally, Kasan, we didn't forget you. So I think you heard about India from the leaders here. Now, with your vantage point of having seen decarbonization across Asia and several other countries, what do you think are the learnings which can be applied to India's energy transition?
No, I appreciate the question, Anurag. And thank you for the organizer of the PowerGen India as well for giving us this great platform to share perspective. And then thank you everyone here for engaging in this discussion. And to Anurag's question, I'd like to divide this into like 3 areas of, let's first talk about what's happening in Asia, and then let's talk about what's happening in India, and then let's talk about some of the innovation technologies taking place, which is applicable to India's roadmap. Now, if you look at Asia across the board, there is no shortage of countries committing to net zero, right? Japan, Korea, Australia, Singapore, all committed to net zero by 2050. China, Indonesia, 2060, and of course, India by 2070. So these targets are there. Now, if you look across Asia, until maybe a few years ago, really we were trailing behind US, Europe, many of the policy drivers in these countries. But now we see a very promising developments across many of countries. So if you look at Japan, countries now providing the contract for difference for clean fuel. So they will subsidize the difference between conventional fuel versus a clean fuel. They're also promoting the long-term decarb capacity auction, whereby they are gradually transitioning the conventional emitting technology to decarbonized technology. And also you have seen the country already done the ammonia co-firing on the coal plant. That's another way to decarbonize thermal asset and so on. You look at Korea, Korea now driving the hydrogen auction now for power sector. So that's ongoing. The result will come out in December. That's a very promising development. And then you look at a place like Australia, against the US IRA, the Australia came up with the Future Made in Australia, which really supports many things like local manufacturing, job creation, but amongst other things, it's providing $1.5 per kilogram support for green hydrogen. And then you look at Singapore driving the ammonia, bunkering, ammonia power gen, and so on. So across these very promising policy support mechanism taking place, but then we really see the challenge around building the right infrastructure and also providing sufficient support to manage the price gap or managing economics of these technologies. So that's kind of generally what we see in Asia. Now, when it comes to India, we really commend the India government and then also India as a country really driving this energy transition and leading this way with very strong support mechanism like national green hydrogen mission and then also the clean power access policy and so on. So this is very encouraging development. When you look at India, for example, the hydrogen front, we talked quite extensively today on this topic, but what India does in this space has an impact to Asia too, because many countries in Asia look into India for competitive clean fuel source. So there's quite a lot to be done here. But for that front, of course, a lot of work has to be done on technology transfer, the international collaboration, market access, and so on. So there's clearly lots to be done on hydrogen front. We talk about renewables in India. We talk about 500 gigawatt by 2030, 50% of capacity from non-fossil fuel generation by 2030. That's a humongous task. And it is very commendable India is driving this. But when you push the system that far, then of course we have to start thinking about curtailment. What's the implication of curtailments there? According to last year's the National Energy Plan, the curtailment rate in India is about 3.3%, which is okay for now. But some areas of high renewable penetration is in the figures as high as 10%. So addressing this going forward becomes a very important agenda. And on the grid side, of course, we need to continue to modernize the grid in India as well. And here, of course, the grid needs to accommodate for decentralized and diverse energy mix. And the T&D has to be established to connect the remote generation center to urban centers. And also we need to invest in things like a smart grid technology, which will enable the efficiency, security, or reliability of the supply, but also enable to do some of the demand side management aspect as well. So in many respects, we see the grid has to lead on this front and then stay ahead of the renewable integration in this area. Now then you think about the question of what are the technologies which will help India's energy transition. And on this front, we from GE Vernova are very excited to be part of this journey here. We've been present in the country for the last 120 years. And today we have about 10,000 employees here, 16 different facilities. And all of these capacity, capability, not only important for India, but important for Asia and global as well, right? And if you see the technology side, I think good examples I can showcase with some of the projects we've been participating as well. So, for example, renewable front, we've done 4 gigawatt of the onshore wind, 4 gigawatt of hydro project, as well as another 7 gigawatt of hydro coming up. And then this includes technology like pumped hydro technology. It's been mentioned earlier as well as one of the key areas that will support the grid. And we have 3 major pumped hydro projects going on in India as well. And it's important to embrace this kind of technology to provide the green, dependable power to support the grid. On the grid side, we have done project of ultra high voltage DC project in Champa region in northern India with the Grid Power Corporation of India. And in that project, we're transmitting 1.5 gigawatt of power. And then that kind of grid connection really helps bring in extra stability to the grid. And this is not the India example, but if you just look to the side to what's happening in ASEAN, ASEAN is working through the what's called the ASEAN Power Grid. So it's connecting different countries, making the grid more robust and more flexible in the design. And our team in energy consulting is engaged on that kind of things as well. So again, bringing the grid connectivity becomes a very important agenda. And then you look at areas like decarbonizing thermal assets. We talked about use of hydrogen on power generation. And that is possible. As my colleague mentioned this morning, technology is there to combust hydrogen on the gas turbines. That will produce green power. But also technology like CCS, carbon capture and storage, that can be utilized to decarbonize thermal asset as well. So we think that's very important. And then you look at areas like the round-the-clock supply of power. So we touched on curtailment earlier, but why curtail? Let's use the excess power to generate hydrogen, and that can be combusted in a hydrogen-enabled gas turbine. And then with the system, you have a truly dependable power system in place. And that kind of solution we're promoting in India as well. So these are some of the example technologies. And even beyond that, globally, we're pushing technology like SMR, the small modular reactor. These are the 300 megawatt scale reactors, safer, faster to implement, and the customers in Canada, Poland, US, all embracing this one now. So that's coming towards the end of this decade. And areas like direct air capture, getting the carbon from the air and then capturing and storing and so on. So in our view, there is no shortage of the portfolio of technologies. But in order to drive this one to implementation, we really need elements around partnership, innovation, and then policy, right? So partnership around the generators, the solution providers, and policymakers, and the innovation in areas like grid farming, renewable integration, clean power, clean fuel combustion, advancing manufacturing, the repair technologies, and so on, to bring more capacity. And of course, the policy front, introducing the carbon markets or green financing, and making sure these are supported and then enable these technologies to be deployed, right? So we're very encouraged the fact that the solutions are there. It really is a matter of getting these pieces together in timely manner to drive the transition
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
So I'm cognizant of time. Therefore, what we will do now is I would request each of the panelists to quickly come out with 2 or 3 opportunity areas or asks they have going forward to realize the vision of Amrit Kal. And let me start with Mr. Dua. So around power generation, what are the two or three key opportunities you see, sir?
One of the area where we feel that there's a lot of opportunities storage. What we are envisaging that we now see it on almost a daily basis that are generating stations, thermal generating stations during daytime when all the solar generation comes into the grid. They have to back down to 55% and more even less than that. So many times stations are not able to get technical minimum schedule, which of course affects the machine life and the efficiency also. So what we are envisaging is that in our thermal generating stations, we can put up solar storage, battery storage in our thermal generating stations, and where during daytime when there is a surplus electricity in the grid, the generation from thermal units would be used for charging those batteries. And during evening hours, when there's a lot of demand in the grid and there's a shortage, so at that time, batteries would discharge. The advantage of putting the battery system along with the thermal generating station is that probably that same transmission system can be used. There would be no additional requirement of transmission system putting in the transmission systems. And then transmission losses also would be not there, 3.5% transmission losses. So those are, that is one opportunity area. Of course, presently there is no regulatory or policy in this field where the thermal generating station can itself put up a battery and then how that power would be treated, charging power would be treated and how discharging power would be treated. So all those policy interventions would be necessary so that this can be a reality. Another area is of course that biomass firing. We have committed to be net zero by 2070 and all those climate pressures are there. NTPC has been forefront in the use of the biomass pellets. So far, without making any changes in the thermal generating stations, we have been co-firing biomass pellets. And so far we have fired about more than 4.5 lakh metric tons of biomass in our thermal generating stations. In the last year alone, we fired 1.7 lakh metric tons. So that is one area of opportunity. The advantage is that from the environmental front, there is no crop burning and all those issues that we face regularly in November, December in the northern part of the country. And this also adds to an income source for the farmers. The farmers are also getting money from sale of this biomass and ultimately this is burning. And this can be done without any modification in the boilers. So that is another area which we feel that going forward, that's an area of opportunity that can be.
Sure, understood.
Thank you.
Understood. So Devangan sir, in your view, what are the emerging 2 or 3 opportunities you see in power financing sector?
Yeah. Technology is going to play a very crucial role. Say, for example, cost of production of hydrogen in India is about $5 to $6 per kg. So we have to develop commercially viable electrolyzer technology so that the cost of production of hydrogen comes down to say about $1 to $2 per kg. That is the opportunity for technological advancement with regard to electrolyzer and production of green hydrogen. Second is commercial viable storage solution. Right now, the cost of pump storage hydro project or battery energy storage project is quite high. If technology can provide solution to bring down the cost of storage, that is going to play a very crucial role in integration of renewable energy into the grid.
Correct.
Third is about flexible operation of coal-based power plant in India. As the share of renewable increases in our energy mix, we'll have to have more flexibility in operation of coal-based thermal power plant. Right now, technical minimum of coal-based power plant is kept as 55%. But going forward, in future, we might have to bring down the technical minimum to say about 40% or even 30% also, depending on the injection of renewable energy into the grid. And the last, I must say that challenge is that since we are going aggressively for solar capacity enhancement in the country, the land is very crucial. The aggregation of land is going to play a very crucial role because solar power cannot be installed until unless land is aggregated and a suitable rental, lease rental is given to the landowner. That is going to play a very crucial role in the energy transition taking place in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was great. Coming to you, Narasimhan uh, for grid stability and expansion, what would be the 2 or 3 most important opportunities that you foresee?
Yeah, so actually, what I would like to say is that 2030 to 2047, that journey will be completely different, and it will not be, all the lessons that we have learned so far may help you to some extent, but we have to be prepared for the entirely different journey. Why I am saying this is that today, if you look at what has been the maximum instantaneous wind and solar penetration, this has been 33% on an all India basis. It has been 33% in the month of July 2024. Now, when we are looking at 2030 to 2047, on many days, this will be in the range of 80 to 100% of demand would be met by wind, solar, and storage, and of course the conventional generation unit. Now, that's going to create a different set of constraints, like you have to couple this with the volatility in terms of weather, If you just look at August 2023, just a year earlier, it was a dry year, 1 in 122 year phenomena. And if you look at August 24, it's totally different, a lot of all the reservoirs are overflowing. And, so the resource adequacy part is going to be really tested. And how can we use artificial intelligence in estimating the weather year, in terms of wind, solar generation, in terms of demand. Why I'm telling is that in the month of May 24, we had forecast that the peak would be 230 gigawatt.
That's right.
But 1 month of sustained heat wave and the demand touched 250 gigawatt, right? So 20 gigawatt came about only because of additional weather beating loads, and the air conditioners and other things. So now 2030 to 2047, you are having more and more air conditioners, you would have data centers, you would have electrolyzers. Electrolyzers, mind you, it is energy going out of the electricity grid. It is going to come back into the electricity grid only from 2050 and beyond, when we are going towards net zero. But initially it will be an outgo from the electricity grid. So in the short term, how do we ensure that the electrolyzers provide demand response? That becomes very important. And for that, we are working closely with CEA to see how our standards, equipment standards, standards for bulk consumers like electrolyzers, data centers, what are the changes that we need so that we get the demand response, we get primary, secondary, and tertiary frequency control from these bulk loads also, So that's going to be the key. So we are working closely with CA on how do we make the standards more forward-looking, because ultimately you will have to get ancillary services from wind, solar, and storage also, so that's going to be important. And then second, of course, is the transmission grid, the planning that we have done so far is focused mainly on queue management, how to accommodate the wind and solar to get connected to the grid. But going forward, we have to take a radically different approach in designing the transmission grid for 2047. So these are the two areas of opportunity that we get to see that Grid India would be very closely associated.
Thank you, sir. This was very pertinent. Thank you so much. This was very pertinent. Thanks. So, Parmarji, from your point of view, given that you represent one of the best states in the country in this area, where do you see collaboration opportunities among states and with the center going forward?
So basically, support of government is very much required to discoms in terms of capital infusion as well as in terms of policy. So if I give you 3 examples where there are opportunities, so first is the RDSS scheme, which has which is as a central and state component to support the discoms for their operation to augment their capacities as well as conventional things like transformers and cables. For that also the money is needed. So government is supporting in that way, and in effect it is providing opportunities to all the vendors also of these kind of things. The second is PM Surya Ghar Yojana. As far as distribution company is concerned, they may lose some of the consumers, but it is very much required, and I think the target which has been set up by central government of 1 crore solar rooftops. So it is also giving, it has opened the gates of opportunities for small suppliers or maybe small vendors and a lot of startups also. So I think this is one of the areas where there is very much opportunity because at present I think we have installed around 1 to 1.5 lakh solar rooftops in India, and the target is very high, and that we have to achieve in maybe near in short term. As far as policy is concerned, as sir said earlier, that land for RE developers, land is very important. Many states have come up with good land pooling policy for RE developers. In Gujarat, apart from land, the connectivity is also has to be ensured, because there are many RE developers who have got the land but they do not have connectivity where to supply the power in the grid. So we have come up with one single window portal in just August month, where we will have no denial policy to any RE developer. Even if we don't have capacity in our substations as of now, we will put up substation where connectivity is required. And that single window portal, I think, will change the way we are looking at the developers, and government is totally in support of all those things. So I think the opportunities are there for all the vendors. The demand is huge from distribution side, and it is going to be increased. So I think the government is also very much positive on all these fronts.
All right, great. Kasan, from you, just wanted to understand the support mechanisms that can enable the commercialization of key technologies for energy transition.
Sure, thank you for the question, Anurag. So while the general market mechanism takes time to allow the large deployment of these latest technologies, we are encouraged by some of the cases where a right support mechanism is driving the technology boundary, right? So one example, in UK, on the CCS front, we have a project called Net Zero Teesside. This is a BP-led project on the 860 megawatt combined cycle gas plant. And then we're adding on the carbon capture plant on the back end. And then this is a project is now FID stage. Now, if this is enabled, this will be the world's first carbon capture on the gas power plant. And our technology has been tech selected there. And it's very promising development, capturing 2 million tons of CO2. And this kind of project was enabled by the UK government putting the contract for difference mechanism in there. So the customer operates this carbon capture enabled gas plant as if it is an operating normal gas plant. So that's one example. Second example on Duke Energy in Florida. They have this power plant, gas power plant, where they are adding on the 75 megawatts of solar power next to it. Idea here is that we use the solar power to generate the hydrogen and use the hydrogen to burn one of the gas turbines there, 80 megawatt gas turbine on the hydrogen mode, and 100% hydrogen. So this will be, again, one of the first commercial plant operating with 100% hydrogen, peaker plant. And again, this is enabled by US IRA policy behind, right? And then another project in Australia, we have a project called the Waiara project with South Australia government. Our technology has been tech selected. And then this is a 200 megawatt, 100% hydrogen enabled peakers. And again, this is supported by the South Australia government. So these are some of the examples of a very specific targeted project supported by the right mechanism, which is driving the technology boundaries. So we'd love to see more of these mechanisms while the general market may take time to develop there.
All right, thank you. So just to summarize, because I think this was almost 45, 50 minutes of what you heard, I've just tried to summarize, and if I were to just put in 3 points, very brief points, right? Number one, what I gathered is future is plentiful and mixed. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that there are going to be huge capacity additions, and those capacity additions are going to be largely green, but we are not jettisoning coal as well, right? So that's the first statement. Future is plentiful and mixed. The second is, we should all be very proud about this, that our focus on the distribution side is shifting from mere availability to quality and sustainability. So there was a time we needed to provide 24/7 power, that was an aspiration. Today I think that aspiration is shifting from just providing electricity to the type of electricity which is being provided, which is a very qualitatively, which is a very big shift. The third thing I could gather is what Narasimhanji said, what got us here will not get us there. Essentially meaning that we will have to change the way we work, and therefore innovation, technology, policy level interventions, right, and partnerships, they will play a very key role in going forward. On that note, I think we can allow 2 questions to be asked, and then we will wrap up the session. So any questions from the audience? Okay, I think if there are no questions, we can wrap it up. I would just like to thank the August gathering here. Thank you so much for being so candid. Your knowledge and your comprehensive answers were really beneficial, not only to the audience, but to myself as well. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Please give a round of applause to our speakers on stage. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with everyone. I would request Shri Anurag Jori, our moderator, to please present mementos to our speakers. We are very grateful to them for coming here. I request you to please present a memento to Shri Devangan of REC. A memento for Shri Ajay Dua, Executive Director, NTPC. A memento for Shri S.R. Narasimhan of Grid Controller of India. A memento for Mr. Tejas D. Parmar of Madhya Gujarat Vijco Limited. A memento for Ms. Kazunari Fukui of GE Vernova. I would request Mr. Abhishek Bhatnagar, CEO of I-10 Media, to please come up on stage to present Mr. Jori with a memento. I request all of you to please gather for a group photograph. Thank you, gentlemen.